This is the Well Founder Podcast.
Welcome to the show, man. It's an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on board because what we're going to be talking about is super relevant to my audience, which is we're going to be dissecting or diving into the whole idea of fractional marketing and then some. But before we do though, could you tell our viewers, those that don't know you, a little bit more about you and about the work you do?
Sure. So my name is Andy, clearly. You just told everybody that. Funny fact about me, I'm Irish as well, which is obviously clear. But I don't live in Ireland. I live in Austria. I've been living in Austria for 15 years. My wife is Austrian. That's how I ended up here. She dragged me over here, kicking and screaming all those years ago. But yeah, since then, I've been working with international scale-ups, startups, in the tech space nearly for the past 10 years in that space. Before that, I was in a couple of other different spaces. If we go back in my career, I started my career as an SDR, then went into sales, and then decided I wanted to earn less money, so I went into marketing. So that was a joke, by the way. I didn't want to earn less money, but that's just what happens when you go from sales to marketing. But I studied marketing, so I always wanted to be a marketer, but I always had a bit of a sales hat on, right? And started working at a number of different organizations, as I mentioned before, in that sort of scale-up space. But my first SaaS company was a company called Emarsis, and they were recently acquired by SAP. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot from Emarsis. I was the global head of demand generation there, so I had a global team for the first time in my life. And I learned a huge amount because they got a huge amount of funding during the time I was there. And if anybody has ever gotten a huge amount of funding, it means that you're able to make a huge amount of mistakes. And I think that's the core of marketing, that you're able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, and then be able to course correct. But being able to make mistakes was a massive gain to me earlier on in my career there with Emarsis. And now we made a lot of mistakes, but we also did a lot of good things. We managed to grow the revenue very, very nicely, and then eventually got sold to SAP, right? So that was a big success story. From there, I went to another organization, which is called Exponia. They were also just recently acquired by Bloomreach. They're a similar marketing automation platform for retailers. I was VP of marketing there for a number of years, also very much focused on growth and demand generation. Grew out a global marketing team there. At one point, the marketing team was consisting of nearly 50 people, including SDRs and everything, so a large team. Following that, left there, went into the B2B space rather than focusing on a B2C customer, which was what I was doing in Emarsis and Exponia, and was the CMO of a company called Leadfeeder, which was a B2B sales tool, which I enjoyed massively. It was there during COVID and everything. During those couple of years, managed to grow that business quite rapidly as well, and they were just sold to EchoBot there last year as well. So another success story. In 2021, I decided to set up my own business. I actually stepped away from Leadfeeder. As I mentioned, I was there during the COVID years, and I was a bit wrecked after that. Like we managed to grow the business very rapidly on a shoestring budget with skeleton staff, really, but managed to still double the size of the organization, or double the revenue within that time frame. So I left that just being like, it's just, for many reasons, just being very exhausted. And I was thinking, I'm going to take a break. Stepped away, and very amicably, without anything to go to, really. Like I had no other prospect. I was just like, I just know I need a break, or this is going to break me. So people started reaching out to me, being like, hey, I heard you left Leadfeeder. Would you be interested in coming on full-time working for me? And would you be interested in taking on a full-time CMO gig again? And I just kept on saying no to full-time things. But then I just started saying like, hey, but I can help, right? And it sort of started as being like, okay, like we've got XYZ problem, we need this problem fixed. And it's normally in the growth, right? They have a problem in growing their marketing org. They have a problem in mostly in pipeline generation, alignment between marketing and sales. They need to build up an SDR team. List goes on, right? And I just started helping people. And then very quickly, within like 3 or 4 months, I was like, oh, there's something in this, right? So with that, I then started to to be like, oh, I need a website. Oh, I need to like have a proper business here. I need to like build it into something. So very quickly, it just started turning into this business. And like 2.5 years later, almost, like here we are. And I've worked with like 20 different businesses, and I've been working with a good chunk of those for almost 2 years, and now have a team, and we're focused on like we offer not just CMO support that comes from me, but also like full scope marketing support in the areas of demand generation, marketing operations, design, content, SEO, the list goes on, right? Paid, and that mostly within the SaaS space, going from volume SaaS all the way to large scale enterprise size deals, right? So we have a bit of expertise across everything. With the team now, across the entire team, we've worked across all of us nearly 100 companies.
Wow.
Across like 30 countries across the globe. So
wow.
good level of experience there, right? So that's me in a nutshell. And I've apologies, I just went on a rant there for like 3 minutes, so I'll let you lead this from here. I'm sorry.
But that's crazy though. That's an extensive amount of experience there, and the 100 companies. That is insane, man. In 30 different countries. It's crazy. I can see that you cover a wide range of areas in terms of marketing. Is there any you prefer out of all this?
Any I prefer? Yeah. So my background is in like demand gen, right? Okay. So it's like, is there anything I prefer? Like, what do I know? What do I know the most on is on that demand gen piece, because that's where my background was, as I mentioned. Some of the areas that I'm not too keen on, or not too keen is too strong of a word. I bring in experts into areas that I don't know as much on. So let's take, for example, SEO. Like I'm not an SEO expert by any means. Like I know what questions I should be asking by looking at data. So if I go into Google Analytics or Google Search Console and see that you're after seeing a massive drop in impressions, for example, into Google Search Console, I know to go and ask my SEO person, like, why is that happening? And what is the triggering event around that? Same goes with Google Analytics, which is directly tied to Google Search Console. If you're seeing a drop in impressions, you're also going to see a drop in traffic to the site. So if I'm seeing stagnating organic traffic, or a drop in organic traffic, or a drop in direct traffic to a website, I'm going to start asking questions. Now, I won't be able to dig in to find out what the answers to those questions are normally. I'm able to get to a certain level, and I know I've got a general idea how to do it, but I need somebody that's really deep in the weeds and knows the answers to those questions and is able to translate it into somewhat layman's terms for me, so that I can go and talk to the client about it, or they can do it directly. That's how I would normally approach this. The same goes with paid. So, for example, with Google Ads, I have an expert, the best person I've ever met when it comes to a Google Ads perspective, a guy called Luis, and he's managed budgets of millions, in the past. And for him, he like flicks a switch and your Google starts, like anything that you're doing on Google starts performing. It's wild. Like I've never seen those type of results, right? And I'm not just being like, oh, we're great, but actually he's amazing at it. I have no idea I have an idea what he's doing, but when we get into the nitty gritty of it, like I'm not the guy to go in and start building out campaigns, right? Like that's not me. I'm not going in and start building out keyword groups and ad groups and so on. Like forget it. Like I'm not the guy, but I have somebody I'm able to pull in for that, right? So they stick in their lane and they're able to focus on that. So to answer your question, like what's my favorite area? Like demand gen is cool. Like I like it, the brand build piece. Like I do quite a lot of podcasts. I do quite a lot of webinars. Like I have no problem in giving my opinion on things, right? And if you really ask me like what my favorite part is it is digging in deep and asking those like questions, being like, why is that like that? Like that's what like for me, it feels like things are like, it feels like a combustion engine starts going in my brain then. And it starts moving forward. Like when I start going, okay, unravel that. Okay, that's why that problem is happening. Or is that affecting that? And that's how I start like going down a little bit of a rabbit hole sometimes, but sometimes you need to. And yeah, with the areas that I'm not so privy on or not so clued into, I have experts that I just pull in. And as we were just talking about before this podcast, your network is your wealth, really, right? So I've built that network up now over the past, I don't know how many years. And with that, I've just been able to pull different people from different projects that I've worked on and different organizations that I've worked with, and be able to put them into key positions. Like my head of content, or the guy that runs all the fractional heads of content for me, Dave, he was my head of content at Exponia. Marcus, who runs all my marketing operations and some of the digital marketing side of things, and just general all around like CRM, cleanliness, and all that type of stuff. Like, he was my more or less my right hand man at two different organizations, when I was in full-time employment. So, and it goes again, my product marketer, Balash, was also somebody that I worked with in another organization. Luis, paid marketer, I coached him for a year at another organization that he was at, and that's how I got to know him. So I've just pulled in people that I know and trust that will come in and do a decent job, right? And again, I'm after going down a bit of a tangent on this one, but for me, there's no part of the marketing job that I dislike per se. But going down to my favorite part would be like digging into how we can make the needle turn a bit better, and then putting the right people in the right positions to go and do that, right?
Makes a lot of sense. It makes it, because sometimes it's difficult to find them, especially when you can. I don't want to say when you're comfortable with most of it, like finding the one that you're not really too keen on, even though you don't want to. I think I agree with you. There are some things I'm not keen on myself that I don't want to do. I rather, but that's also awesome that you've got such a network in terms of, the people you work with right now are people you've worked with in the past on different projects. That's so cool, man. The importance of having such a big network in there, I can't overemphasize that. So now let's go into this whole idea of fractional marketing right now. It's a term I've seen very recently. I've come across it recently. Like maybe it's a trend in the industry. I'm not sure. But could you, for a founder that hasn't come to terms with or doesn't know what that is, could you explain it to them?
Sure. So fractional means part-time, basically. It's like a fractional is like a fancy way of saying part-time.
I see.
Okay, so
I see.
You're basically taking all of the knowledge and all the expertise that people have from years of experience in a certain in marketing or in the SaaS space, let's say, for example, in building SaaS brands, and taking that and putting them into essentially what we do. It's different. Everybody offers it slightly different, but what we do is we offer the CMO support at a fraction of the number of hours that a normal CMO would do per week, which would also be at a fraction of the cost of what a normal CMO would cost you, a full-time CMO, right? Yeah. Same would go for a fractional marketing team. We would come in and be your, all intents and purposes, marketing team for a fraction of what the headcount cost will be, but also at a fraction of the time of what you'll get from a full-time marketing team. But in saying that, we don't focus on hours. So this is the thing. People always say, oh, how many hours you do? I say, let's stop focusing on hours. Let's focus on outcomes. So what are you trying to achieve as a business? And that's how we'll try to get you there. Okay. So if it takes 5 hours or 50 hours, who cares? Right? Like, we agree with our clients on terms of what can the outcomes be that everybody's going to be happy with. And then we look at like, okay, normally in a contract, we need to put in a number of hours and what that's going to mean per week, because it's normally somebody from legal sitting down or a finance person sitting down saying, okay, how many hours are they going to work if they're part-time? And then I give them an hour and they're like, oh, how are you tracking that? I'm like, okay, like, again, I'll have this conversation, say, what's the outcome? If I agree with you 5 hours a week, and it ends up that I work 10, I come to you and say, hey, you owe me 5 additional hours. Are you going to be happy with that if you're not seeing the outcome? Or if I work 2 hours and you're seeing the outcome that you want to see, are you going to come for me and look for money back? It's always like, I had the same conversation with somebody earlier today, in that 1 week if you start focusing on the hours, 1 week somebody's going to be annoyed, and the next week the other party's going to be annoyed, right? So to answer your question, what's a fractional marketer or a fractional marketing team? it's part-time marketing resource, but part-time marketing resource that has a massive wealth of knowledge and experience that are able to achieve things that are unlikely to be able to, first of all, you be able to afford, and second of all, be able to achieve with an existing marketing effort.
Very interesting. What are the benefits then in terms of, I guess, why not just hire like a full time marketer?
Cost and risk. So like, and as well speed. So like the if you go into let's start with like trying to find a CMO. Okay. If you want to find a CMO, you're going to have to go to a recruiter normally. Okay. Go to a recruiter, sit down and decide, okay, let's say the rate that you're going to agree with the recruiter is going to be somewhere between 50 to 20%, 15 to 20%, right? And that's when they place somebody. Then you're going to be going through round after round after round of interviews. You're going to have to go through a massive mountain of CVs, etc. That takes time. So you're talking about from the moment that you decide to hire a full-time CMO to the moment that you actually have the full-time CMO sitting at a desk or whatever, sitting or working for your organization, you're probably talking, if all things go well, you're probably talking about a 3-month time frame. Now, that 3-month time frame is based on region. If, like in the UK, for example, some people have 2 months notice period, maybe longer. Maybe they want to break in between roles, whatever it might be. So it could be anywhere varying between 3 to 6 months before you find somebody. In the meantime, stuff's not happening. So like, do you just allow stuff to continue not happening whilst you look for somebody? I've come into organizations before where they're like, okay, I need stuff to get up and running immediately. We'll still continue to look for a CMO. I'm like, that's absolutely fine. I'll actually help you find a CMO if you want that. Like, I'll sit down and interview people. I'll introduce you to people from my network, right? But again, the timing piece is big. The cost piece is big. Once you place somebody, you're talking about a 15 to 20% fee. If somebody is a full-time CMO and they're good, it depends on the size of organization, their amount of experience that they have. But as I mentioned to you before, like, I've got experience now with working over 20 SaaS companies over the past 10 years, and being CMO level, VP marketing level, director level, like that senior marketing team in front of the board, presenting, etc. Like, I have that experience, right? Now, if you're going to find somebody with that experience, normally, let's say US market, you're probably talking somewhere around $200K a year, give or take, $200,000 a year, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Talking about in the UK, you're talking about 150 grand a year minimum, right? I come in at a fraction of that. Like, I won't be charging you 250K a year, right? Just for me, right? If we're talking about the entire team, like, we will take the entire team. Like, if you're coming and saying, hey, I want an entire marketing team like that, remember the speed of finding an entire marketing team, like a head of content, a head of demand gen, a head of paid, a head of designer, content, blah, blah, all of these things. If you're looking for an entire team, that's going to take years to build out normally. I can offer it to you next week if you want.
I see.
And at the same time, to have all that headcount, it's going to cost you probably half of what it would cost you a month normally to have full-time employees. And if you're not happy, you can fire me in an instant, and nobody will be crying. I haven't been fired yet, by the way, just as an FYI. But if it's not working out on either side, then we just say, okay, look, like, let's call it quits. No harm done. But things have been executed, right? That's the thing. So it's not like with a full-time employee where you need to go through the entire process, et cetera, et cetera. It's risk-free as well. So timing, money, and risk.
I see. And they don't have to pay your taxes as well. So that'll
exactly. Help. So we're not an FTE. So we're not a full-time employee. So on the balance sheet, it's a lot more favorable when you're looking at from a profitability perspective. It's much better. But if you're doing any financial models, et cetera, it's always better to have less FTEs than more, because more FTEs mean more risk. Full-time employees.
I see. Is there like major categories that SaaS cover when it comes to marketing, and do you cover all of them, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So yeah, we cover everything. Like, I can pull people in as I need.
Okay.
So as I said, let's talk about what a marketing org could look like, right?
Yeah.
So demand generation covered, which is, generating demand, which is in the name, but everything from to doing things like podcasts, webinars, etc. Product marketing covered. So everything from analyst relations, so dealing with the likes of Forrester and Gartner, to product videos, to customer onboarding, to life cycle marketing, etc. Like all of that under product marketing. I have a head of product marketing. Content marketing, the same. So if you need blogs written, white papers written, any form of written content at all, websites written, etc., I've got the person that can write it. I've got a team of writers working for him, and then I've also got somebody that we lean on from an SEO perspective that's able to do on-page SEO as well as technical SEO and link building as well. Then from a design perspective, have a designer that we lean on, that we can pull in and out of projects as needed, right? That's not a full-time resource. It's somebody that is able to give him stuff as required. Then we have from like other marketing teams would have things like head of brand, right? Which is a mixture sort of all of the above, right? And that head of brand would be, I'd normally step into that position myself as a head of brand, right? Just to make sure that everything that's hitting the right notes there. From a development perspective, we have people that we work with that are developers that are able to work on marketing sites as well, right? So if you need hard-coded, like some people build their entire website hard-coded, including blog, and they're like, oh, Jesus, how do I upload content now? And how do I get this rolled out quickly? I have people there that can help with that, right? What else? So as I mentioned, it depends on for example, on the larger scale of deals. So like if we're talking about non-volume SaaS. So let's say, for example, companies that are selling deals of like 100K plus. We're talking about there would probably be quite a bit of account-based marketing involved in that. I have somebody on the team that's able to build out the entire process of account-based marketing and implement that within your existing marketing automation platform or CRM, and also build out the entire play of how that's going to work across the organization. And I will also step in and help with that. And we also have somebody on the team that's able to manage a CRM/marketing automation platform. So as well as interpret results, build out reports, make sure that you're able to track marketing success, etc. So we have basically all bases covered.
It's very broad. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting like maybe you did like 4 different areas of marketing. So that makes you super, super flexible. So if a client came to you and was like something very niche, how would you be able, have you ever turned down clients? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
However, yeah, I have. I've turned down clients that are too small. So most people come to me first off. They start with hey, I need CMO support. Like that's normally where it comes from. It comes from my network, right? Normally, people come to me and be like, hey, I want to work with you, Andy. And I'm like, okay, but you're missing all of these areas. How about we talk about how we implement the other pieces? Because I'm not going to be the guy that's going to come in and execute everything for you. I don't have the bandwidth to do it. Like a company was think, oh, Andy could do it. He's going to come in and build ad campaigns for us, and he's going to do content, and he's going to do all. Like, I'm not like the one man band, right? Like I don't have a drum on my back and a guitar here and like the harmonica and stuff, right? It's not going to work, right? I'm the guy that will lead it all. If you have internal people that are able to deliver and execute, then I can guide them in the right direction. That's where I excel, right? I also get my hands dirty. I don't like to be called a consultant, because a consultant to me is like a dirty word, right? A consultant is like somebody that comes in and like kicks over tables and it's like, are you doing all this wrong? And then it's like, bye, that's not me. Like if I come into a business, I make sure that it's being followed through on, and that we're hitting the right steps, and that we're seeing things happen. Like I focus on execution rather than consultation. So I consult and then I execute or help execute. So I'm not the guy that's like disappears off into the night then, right? But to answer your question, like, have I turned away customers? Yes, I have. I normally turn them away because they're too early in their journey. So we've made some, like, we've had some lessons. We've worked with with companies that I knew in my gut it probably wasn't a good fit, just because they were so early stage, and they were looking for, let's say, they were looking for paid, they were looking for my guidance, and they were looking for content, right, as well as marketing operations, building out all the reports and everything. And that comes with like a fairly juicy price tag. It's not like it's a big commitment, right, to somebody, to an organization that's very, very early stage. Like they were seed, right? That's it's a, you know, they were pre-series A, right? So with that, I did it because it was a mate, right? And I think his business is pointed in the right direction. But with that, I was able to say to him fairly early on, hey, look, I think this is not a good use of your money. So I think you need X, Y, Z. I'm going to give you these contacts, go talk to them and they'll help you out. But after that, I've said, like, my ICP is, my ideal customer is definitely not that stage. It needs to be between Series A and B, maybe around Series B, relatively well established. They have a budget, they have a marketing team, and they're interested. They're maybe about to close around, or they have some cash to be able to grow. Because I can't click my fingers and make things appear for free as well. A lot of people anticipate that as well, you know, that you just, oh yeah, marketing, you know, you just like change some things in the back end there and that's for free. And then, you know, our traffic is going to double. That's not how it works, right? Yeah. So you need to invest, and you need to have an investment budget there as well. So like, yeah, like some of my questions normally earlier on would be like, okay, what's your budget around this? What are your thoughts on this? And sometimes I've spoken with founders where I'm like, I'm not working with that person. Like I refuse to work with that person because they're never going to be able to get it. Like I know it's going to be a troublesome relationship. And the reason why I work for myself is because I don't want to work with people like that. That's why I decided to start my own business. I be the master of my own destiny rather than working with assholes, right? Not that I worked with assholes before. That's I have worked with assholes before, but not in my previous organizations in the past couple of years, let's say. So yeah,
that's one of the perks of working with doing your own thing. Basically, you get to choose who you work with. One of the perks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Oh, sweet Lord. And that is really good, though. That is really good, especially when you've established yourself to a point, you know, and then you can now be selective about who you work, and you're very clear about who you work with. And there's something you said there that I was also thinking about. Like you said, you work with companies that already have a marketing team, yeah? Now, do you come in, you don't like the word consultant, but do you come in as a consultant? Let's say they had a...
Oh, don't say that filthy word. It's disgusting. Sorry. Keep going.
Oh, good. Let's say they had a CMO already.
Yeah.
Can you work with the CMO? I mean, you're literally at CMO level. So how would that dynamic work?
Yeah, I've coached CMOs and I've coached founders in terms of how they can also work together with their CMOs.
Oh,
so okay. Like I'm relatively flexible with that. It's like, again, it's a lot from my network. Over the years, I've built out a very good network on LinkedIn as well. And what typically happens is people come to me and be like, hey, we have, or this is not typical, this happens. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but we have a marketer. They're good, but they don't have the experience. Or I have a CMO that's just sort of ended up in this position. They don't have a huge amount of experience and they just need some pointers in the right direction. Can you come in and help?
I see.
Or, for example, I'm working with an organization at the moment that they parted ways with their CMO, and it's or whatever the history was there, their CMO left or whatever, and then it was like, okay, we need to rethink things here a little bit, and their founder has stepped in now as running the marketing team, but doesn't have experience in running a marketing team. And this is somebody that's been very close to my network for a number of years, so I'm stepping in and helping him. And we're tearing things up and just doing things in a new way, and we're starting to see good things happen. But he's the one that's leading the efforts. I'm just like the Wizard of Oz in the background a little bit, just like whispering in his ear, saying, look, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Maybe you should look at this. Why don't we look at this way, and so on. So it's not so much hands-on with the team, but more hands-on with him, but also working with the team and trying to help them figure out certain areas. I'm there as that resource if they need me. But yeah.
Makes sense. It makes sense, because sometimes you just need that external person or external point of view to see stuff that you're not seeing, basically. So yeah, that helps. It's kind of related to my next question then, is how companies can manage their marketing? Say they wanted to go the route of hiring or working with a fractional marketer. How would you advise them they did it?
Reach out to me and then we scope it. That's all. You know, I'm joking. So no, like, look, as I said, don't overthink it. Like, if you're looking for a marketing or a marketer or a number of marketers or a number of elements within your marketing work, you're gonna have to go through the pain of hiring. Hiring is a pain in the ass. I don't know if you've been involved in hiring processes, especially if you're hiring for multiple roles. If you're going quick as an organization, it's pain, right? The same goes, like, normally what happens is that an organization gets to maybe Series A and or Series B, right? And they've been very product led or IT led. And then they're like, oh shit, we need marketing, right? Like, to scale to the next level, we need marketing. They're like, okay, we need a marketing team immediately. And then they start going out and looking for people, right? Frantically looking for people. They're working with recruiters, etc., right? If you're in that situation, just to bridge the gap at least between when you find your full-time marketer or marketing team, then fractional CMO or a fractional marketing team makes sense, because they can come in and just pick up the pieces basically immediately. Like, there's literally nothing to lose with it. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You get a bit more market exposure. And you can say goodbye overnight. Like, if you don't feel it working after a month, say, okay, I don't think this is working. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So it's a relatively pain-free and risk-free thing. So if you find yourself in that position where you're looking to scale your marketing efforts, but you don't have the people and you need a solution relatively quickly, that's when fractional efforts make sense.
Makes a lot of sense. I could see, this whole the workforce evolving. People are always talking about it. I could see what you do. A lot of very skilled employees might be going this route, like maybe fractional accountant or fractional CTO or something like that. So very, very, very interesting. I might need to consider that for my own rules.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. I know a guy.
Okay, so you've given an awesome tip in terms of finding a fractional CMO, but we've come to the end of the chat, by the way. If you could, I always like to ask my guests to leave our viewers with a final tip. Say, I don't know, let's say a Series A founder was thinking, I need marketing help, but what would your advice be to him? Would you say get a fractional CEO or CMO, or would you say actually, what would be your advice to them if you're not going to be a good fit for them? What would be the alternative?
Okay, so I see this happening very often, right? That especially in the US, this happens quite often in the US. Same with sales teams as well. They go and hire a big hitter. So they go and they think they need like the 300K CMO, right? The person that's done it all before, like they've gone and they've built massive businesses and so on. Like, yes, it's good to have that experience. But on the other hand, are they really going to be able to do it for your business? It's very, based on my experience, it's not as repeatable as CEOs think or founders think, right? Every business is different. Every category is different. Every industry is different. Even though it's within SaaS, it's all different, right? Everybody's offering a different offering. Doesn't mean just because you were successful in one business, you're going to be ultra successful in the next, okay? You just need to be wary with that, right? So, like, I would not be going after those 300K, like, this guy was the CMO of ZoomInfo or whatever, right? Therefore, he's going to be brilliant, or she's going to be amazing in my business that's currently at 10 million ARR, right? It's a different beast. So you want to be looking at people that have been in that stage where they've grown businesses, depending on where you are from a growth perspective. If you're 0 to 5 or 1 to 5, let's call it. If you're 1 to 5 million, then look at people that have brought companies from 5 to 10. Because that's like people's wheelhouse, right? 5 to 10. If you're at 10, you're looking to grow to 20. Look at 10 to 20 CMOs. People that have been in a position where they've managed to grow the business from 10 to 20. Same goes for 20 to 30, 30 to 50, 50 to 100. So look at where the experience has been there, because that's more important than somebody that exploded a business and that's mega expensive, or came into a business when they were already at 50 million ARR and brought them to 70, and you're at 10 million. They're not going to want it. Like, the difference between that CMO and the CMO that's done the 5 to 10 million, the 5 to 10 million CMO is going to be used to rolling up their sleeves and just getting shit done, right? The 70 to 100 million will have had a massive team, or would have had a massive team under them to do all of the things. Something that you don't necessarily have with smaller revenue, right? You're not going to have a big marketing team. So just be wary with that. And I've seen that fail a number of times. And like, more often than not, I see that fail. Happens, it works sometimes, where the person's super hungry and just loves getting their teeth into it. But more often than not, that doesn't work.
That's such a brilliant point. Because as you were speaking, I was just picturing, I don't know, you're Irish, so you love football, right? you love I was thinking it's kind of like a smaller team hiring, let's say, Jose Mourinho, when he was at his prime. He comes, obviously he's a Premier League winner, Champions League winner, then he obviously, but hiring him comes with his team, and he's not going to like work with a smaller guy to maybe get you into the Premier League or something like that. You rather work with a big four, top four company. Yeah.
Exactly. You're not going to put Jose Mourinho to coach Bradford.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or it's not, or Charlton Athletic. He's not going to come down to League One and coach Charlton Athletic or Leeds United, right?
Yeah. Very, very
doesn't make sense. That's all right.
Andy, this has been a wonderful, wonderful chat. I've really enjoyed this, and you've really given us a proper insight into this the world of fractional marketing. If any of our viewers would like to learn more about you, possibly work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can get me on LinkedIn, just Andy Culligan, find me, or you can find me on andyculligan.com.